Bernie Wall here from IELTS Learning Tips, and today I have another video for you, and I finished with the series on courses and teachers, and today we're going to look at vocabulary and how to make sure that you've got the right sort of vocabulary for your task 2 in particular. As you know, I specialize in working with students who need bands 7 and 8, and I also work a lot with students who've taken the exam a few times and just don't seem to be getting the right bands. So if you're in that position, I would love to speak to you and see how I might be able to support you, either by us working together or perhaps just by giving you some advice as to what you should do. So if you want to contact me, please feel free. My website details, Facebook group details, and Facebook ID should all be on this page, and you can contact me through any of those means. Okay, so what I want to look at today is a phenomenon really amongst a lot of students who learn new words or find new words. I don't actually know where they find them from, because some of them are words that are a little bizarre, but they find new words and have the belief that if they use these words, they're going to get a high band because they are so-called difficult words. But I want to show you, I hope, how this is a mistake, because it's not going to help you necessarily to get a high band. And I want to explain the reasons why that is the case, and also give you a few tips on how you can make sure when you find new words that A, you use them properly, and B, they are the right kind of words that you should be using for your IELTS Task 2 writing. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these ideas. So what vocabulary do you really need? And making sure that you get the right vocabulary that's going to help you to get a high band. Okay, there's something that I like to call vocabulary stuffing that goes on in task 2. And that's where students learn a lot of words and they just pack them into their writing in the hope that it will impress the examiner. And I've seen lots and lots of tasks like this, some from my own students and some from other students who are posting in various places on the internet. And it seems to be quite a common thing that each sentence will have 4 or 5 words that look fairly esoteric or sophisticated or academic, but actually the accumulation of those words ends up in something that's a little bit like nonsense, if I'm honest. So here are 3 examples of the kind of thing I'm talking about. And I want to go through these 3 examples one by one and explain why this is not a particularly good sentence for an IELTS Task 2 writing. And you may have used some of these words. You may have written sentences exactly like this. But I want to explain why you could do this better if you tone down the vocabulary a little bit. So let's have a look at the first one. So yeah, the language here is stilted. It's not natural, and it feels a little bit, how can I explain stilted? It's a little bit false. That's what it means. So this first one is passive. Now, I know in academic writing, especially, but also in the general training task 2, because it's objective writing, you need to use passive, and you do need to use passive, and you need to be good at using passive, but not every sentence needs to be passive. So if we look at this, it is disagreed, that's passive, that increasing the availability of public transport will reduce pollution significantly. Okay, so my first question here, with an examiner hat on, if you like, is who's disagreeing? It's not clear who is disagreeing. It is disagreed. By whom? Is it general, Or is it just the writer who's disagreeing? Is this your opinion as the writer, or are you saying the general public? So firstly, if this is an opening sentence, which I think it is, I'm already confused. Okay. So you could do this in a different way. You could say, many people disagree that increasing the availability. Oh, I hear you say, but many people is very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It has to be clear. So many people is not simple. It is disagreed is not difficult. It's just the difference between good, clear language and confusing, not clear language. If you want to make it a little bit more sophisticated, you could use the noun disagreement. So there is widespread disagreement that increasing the availability. So here we're clear that this is the general public we're talking about. Okay. And I don't actually think many native speakers, certainly people I know, would ever write this sentence. And that's the ultimate test. Is this the kind of language that people generally who are speakers and users of English would write? And I don't think so. Good writing, great writing has a great deal of simplicity. And a lot of people say to me when they see the essays that are written by the examiners in the Cambridge books, it's too easy. It isn't easy, it's just good and clear. And simplicity is inherent in good writing. So that's what you really should be aiming for. Okay. So big words don't equal high bands. And here's the other one. Analyzing both the views, the essay will delineate the reasons behind why governments ought to contribute more money to the problem of drug dealing. Okay, so the word I'm looking at here, well, there are two things, is delineate and also the essay will. Okay, a lot of people say this, the essay will do this, the essay will do that. I personally don't like this at all, but I see that it's very common. One of the problems with it being very common is that it's overused and examiners see it again and again. And again, I do not think any native speaker would write like this because it's not clear. What can an essay do? An essay can't do anything. It's the opinion of the writer that is sought. And the reasons are given by the writer. So be very careful when you're talking about what an essay is going to do or what a task is going to do. Delineate, I don't know. I've never seen this word. I've never used it in my life. And I think because it's rather old-fashioned, it's archaic. It means to describe or to indicate with accuracy. That's what it means. But it's not a common word. And it overstates the intention. The intention here is just to give some reasons about why governments ought to pay for the problem of drug dealing or to alleviate the problem of drug dealing. So you don't need a word like delineate, I don't think. And secondly, it's just not a common word. It's not a word that's used very often. So when you learn new words, don't just check the meaning, especially, I suspect this was probably in a bilingual dictionary. So somebody put a word in their language into a bilingual dictionary, and this one popped out as the English translation. Be very, very careful with that, because often bilingual dictionaries, and especially if it's a small one, will only give you one choice. And this is a word that is not in common usage. Okay, so you have to check more than just the meaning. Clarity is the most important thing. when the examiner is reading your task. They need to understand exactly what you're saying, why you're saying it, how you're supporting it. So here we have another one. It is also predicted, so here's your passive, that antithetic, I don't know that word, I've never used it in my life, of teaching using online materials will be removed by creating a more efficacious way of learning for the children. I have read that now and I really do not understand what it means. I'm distracted by antithetic, I'm distracted by efficacious. I don't know who's doing the prediction here. And all I have is confusion in my mind. I do not know what the person writing this is trying to say. Okay, antithetic, another word that's not common. I think it possibly should be antithetical in this case, but I'm not 100% sure. And I had to look that up in the dictionary. I haven't used it. I don't think it's a word that people would generally use. So be careful. Like I said, these two words, efficacious, which is a word that's fine to use, by the way, but the two of them together are distracting. And I really am not clear. And it won't necessarily, therefore, give you a high band. Just because you've used those words will not result in a good score, because it's not, what you're saying is obscured by the use of these words, which don't necessarily fit well with what you're trying to say. So just because a word exists, it doesn't mean that you have to use it. Okay, so I saw a post recently about difficult words for use in IELTS. I personally do not believe there is such a thing as a difficult word. A word is a word. The only thing that might be difficult about some words is the spelling. Some words are quite tricky to spell, but over and above the spelling, words are words, and they're not especially difficult or not especially easy. And I think that thinking that this is a hard word, this is an easier word, will get you into a lot of hot water in IELTS. And it's how you use them and what you do with them that's important. So just putting a lot of uncommon words stuffed into your sentences will certainly not get you a band 7. And it's more likely to go the opposite way, because you will confuse the examiner as to what you're trying to say. And the so-called difficult words, if you do use them, or what was on this list of difficult words, need a good context, and it's their context that make them appropriate. So the key things is accuracy, that means no grammar mistakes, clarity, very clear about what you're trying to say, and do that in very well expressed language. So with good vocabulary that is very understandable, with a good use of linking words, of language devices, of adjectives and adverbs to make your sentences more interesting, all of this will get you a band 7 or a 7.5 or an 8. Okay, so how do you do this? Firstly, always have a reliable source. So that must be an up-to-date dictionary. Now, you don't have to rush out and buy one, but there is a tendency sometimes for people to have a dictionary in their house that maybe belong to their parents or their grandparents, and that might be a bit out of date. And there may be words in there that we no longer use. So try and get an up-to-date dictionary or use one online. The one I prefer personally is Macmillan. It's a really good dictionary. However, the Cambridge and the Oxford are equally good. Okay. There's a very wide vocabulary in English. And the problem with just looking in a bilingual dictionary is that it may only give one word in English. And that particular word that it gives you might not be the appropriate word for your context. So it is much better, if you can, to use an English dictionary. So take that word, check it in the English dictionary. And if you're doing this online, it's easy because you don't have to carry around a lot of books, and just double check to see whether you can use that word in this context. And it's the only way of doing it. I see lots and lots of words, and I'm pretty sure those words like delineate, etc., came from a bilingual dictionary, and it won't tell you if it's an old word. So have a good resource online or a good up-to-date dictionary where you can check these things, and they will give you examples. All serious advanced level English language students, to my mind, must have access to a good dictionary, and that can be online or it could be on your phone. Doesn't have to be a book that you go and buy. You should also have a good grammar resource so that you can check the grammar or any grammar you're not sure about. These things are the tools for a good English language student, and therefore a good IELTS student too. So in a dictionary that is a good dictionary, and if you look at the Macmillan dictionary online, you will see it tells you how to use it. Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it archaic, which means it's old-fashioned, so you probably shouldn't use it at all in IELTS writing. And it tells you whether it's literary, so whether it's more used in literature, in poetry, or in drama, rather than in formal writing. It may even tell you if it's an academic word. So you can find out a lot about this word, and that will help you to know whether it's a good word to use in your Task 2 writing. Okay, and the second thing you should do is to check out some good model IELTS tasks. These will give you a good idea about exactly how you should write this task. And most of them, well, the ones I'm thinking about, are written by IELTS teachers or by examiners. Now, if you look in the Cambridge books, 1 to 15, they don't all have, but most of them do. You will see some examples that have been written by examiners. And quite frankly, if examiners don't know how to write IELTS Task 2 essays, then who does? So these will show you exactly the kind of vocabulary, the kind of sentence structure, the kind of linking words, the way you should be expressing things. And all you should do then is take out some examples and try them for yourself. As I said before, you can't get better examples, nor can you do better by just using weird and wonderful vocabulary. You cannot do it better than the examiners. So don't try, and use these as a guide. Don't copy them. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm saying take out some examples. You know, if there's a sentence you really like, try and use those words or those phrases or that grammar or that structure in your own essay and see how it works. And remember, it's only 25% of the total mark. So if you spend all your time trying to find weird and wonderful words, and you don't spend time making sure your grammar is good, or making sure that you analyze the question properly, or making sure that you work on cohesion with good linking words and devices and getting complex sentences, then you're going to lose a lot of your marks on other things than vocabulary. So I hope that helps you understand a bit about how to find good vocabulary and how to make sure that the vocabulary that you have learned is being used appropriately. Okay, so thank you for watching, and you know, please do look for that dictionary, the Macmillan or the Oxford or the Cambridge, and have it bookmarked on your computer, your laptop, or find something on your phone, so that whenever you see a word, a new word, you can very quickly check and see if it's one that's going to be appropriate for your IELTS writing. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye, everybody.